and I was finally allowed to go to the playground down the street from my house by myself, if one of my parents was in the front lawn. We lived in a newer suburban area, which was made up of basically all young families with kids, so they figured it would be safe. And I took advantage of this every chance I got. One July afternoon, my mom was cleaning out her car, laying all the mats on the lawn and vacuuming everything out. I was bored of watching her clean, so I asked to go to the playground, and after some prodding on my part, she reluctantly agreed. So I skipped down the street, stopping to pet a neighbor's cat. Her name was Muffin. Before arriving at the park, I climbed on the jungle gym for a while, just enjoying the warm weather and humming to myself, until I heard a man clear his throat. I turned around and shielded my eyes from the sun, trying to get a good look at him. But with how bright the sun was, I could only really make out his silhouette. He was standing at least 30 feet away on a small hill, which at the time had a wide metal slide coming down from it. "Hi, little girl," he said, trying to sound friendly. "You look like Bubbles. Do you like Bubbles from the Powerpuff Girls? You look just like her." I nervously said that I did, and he continued to talk and try to coax me up the hill. "I think Bubbles is the cutest. Did your mommy help you with those pigtails? Come here and let me see them. I have some Powerpuff Girls toys in my car. You might like some of them and take them home. You should come with me and see if you want any." I continued to refuse all his offers, and I became increasingly uncomfortable. I remember mentioning that my stomach hurt and that I should go. And in retrospect, it was probably panic causing me pain. He didn't make any attempts to move down from the hill, but I noticed his hand moving up and down in his pocket, and something straining against the front of his jeans. At the time, I obviously didn't know anything about what he was doing, but I had a strong gut feeling that it was something very bad. I was very blonde at that age, though as I got older my hair turned brown. When I was 4, it was basically platinum blonde. I was also wearing a light blue summer dress and little black shoes, so I suppose I did look very similar to the cartoon character. But every time he called me Bubbles, it just made me want to vomit. "Come up here, little Bubbles. I have a trick to show you. If you sit on my lap and we go down the slide together, we can go extra fast," he told me. He was talking very quickly, almost in a panic. He kept repeating that I should come to his car and see all the toys he had. I was frozen on top of the jungle gym, and I just kept repeating no and "I don't want to." Suddenly his voice got louder and took on a tinge of annoyance. "Come on, little girl. I haven't got all day. Do you want the toys or not? There's lots of them. Probably more than all your toys at home put together. I'm parked just over there." He started to walk down the hill slowly, still touching himself through his jeans. When he got to the base of the jungle gym, he was whispering under his breath that I was such a pretty child, and that we'd have so much fun together. This is when I got a better look at him. He was probably in his late 20s or early 30s, and he actually didn't look like a stereotypical creep. He actually looked pretty respectable. He looked like most of the young fathers around the neighborhood looked. He was white, with neat dark hair and dark eyes. The worst thing about him was the wild look in his eyes as he continued to touch himself and ambled toward the jungle gym. I stood still, frozen in fear as he approached the jungle gym, and stopped a little to try and look up my dress. When I backed up instinctively, he said he just wanted to see my little shoes, and that he thought they were very nice. Then he reached for my ankle. My sock folded down under his grasp and I was able to slip away. I scrambled down the monkey bars to the other side and ran down the street to my house. I only looked back once, and when I did, he was standing at the entrance to the playground, his hand now entirely down his pants. I got back to my front yard, and as I tearfully explained what happened, I saw a van tear away from behind the playground and he was gone. We never heard anything about that man ever again, but I really hope he never got his hands on any other little kids. I'm in university now, but I still have nightmares about it sometimes. I remember I was too upset at the time and had this weird, sickly feeling in my stomach, so I couldn't even eat my dinner that night. After this happened, I got that same feeling in my stomach whenever the Powerpuff Girls came on TV. Even though I still loved watching it, that momentary panic hit me every time. So, creepy pedophile at the playground, I hope I never have to come in contact with you again. Back in my early 20s, I was trying to kick a major 4-year heroin addiction. Like I said, trying, on my own, which meant that I wasn't using as much, and it would be months in between. On this fateful day, someone had given me 2 OC80s. This was when the price of such goodies hadn't reached the almost $100 a piece mark. I had never seen these. They were fairly new on the streets, so after getting off work at the little coffee shop I worked at, I popped the 2 teeny tiny treats in my mouth and hopped on the train to head into Boston to go see one of my fave punk bands. Now, anyone who knows about kicking a habit, when you start to use less, your tolerance goes down. So number 1 rule there is use less than you used to. And I had no idea how strong one of these things was. And like I said, major habit. So of course I took them both. And for those who don't know, 1 OC80 is enough to let a 200-pound junkie feel good. So being a 110-pound girl that hasn't touched the stuff in a couple of months, I don't even remember the show. Never mind do I know how I got on the train and off at my stop. Anyways, by the time I got to my ratty little borough of Beantown, I was throwing up every 20 feet or so. I could barely keep my eyes open, and I didn't live in a very good part of the city. And curling up on a corner and hoping I didn't die was not an option. So I propped myself along the walls and was trying to inconspicuously hurl while trying to make the 5 blocks to my apartment. I was about halfway there when I noticed a shitty car going really slow behind me. I figured whoever was in it was looking for a hooker. The part of town I lived in, anyone could be a hooker. So I just turned and looked at him and shook my head. This was usually enough to get him to drive on. It wasn't. Guy pulls right up to me in this like 30-year-old crappy green Honda or something and says, in a very thick, what I'm guessing, please don't tear me apart for not knowing, Korean accent, "You need help. Get in, get in." The man looked to be about 30 and of Asian descent, dressed in jeans, blue tattered t-shirt, and I kid you not, a tux jacket. That has nothing to do with anything, I just thought it strange. Living in Boston, you see some strange stuff. Now, even being a junkie punk chick, I was always a polite girl who was so nice to strangers as to not hurt any feelings, and because of this, I would get myself into dangerous situations, and I knew this. So I just wiped the puke off my mouth and smiled at the guy and said, "Thanks, but my boyfriend is waiting for me just down the street." There was no boyfriend, and I actually had quite a bit of blocks to cover. But I was nice, not stupid. Well, not that stupid, considering the pill-sickened state I had put myself in. Mr. Man says, "You sick, you need a ride." Okay, guy can't take a hint. I told him again that I didn't need a ride, but thanks. I started to walk faster and cross the street. Unfortunately, it was a one-way, and he pulled up close enough to the curb that he could grab me from the driver's side. Alright, now I'm getting scared. It's almost 3 a.m. and no one is out on the side street. "No, you get in now." I was feeling really sick and embarrassed at this point. I was trying to hold off throwing up in front of this guy. And I know I'm about to hurl again and getting pissed. So I yelled, "No, I know, get in now. Look dude, I'm not gonna suck your dick, so just fucking leave." And then puked. Now I was always on the small side and hung around and lived in places where it was a good idea to have some sort of protection. Tonight I had my gravity knife tucked in my boot, so when Mr. Good Samaritan started to get out of his car as I was bent over, I pulled it and let the blade slide out as I stood up and said, "Please just leave me the fuck alone." His eyes focused on the knife and he got back in the car. Like I said before, his car was a piece of shit. So when he took off, it was really loud. I watched him turn the corner and started back on my wall crawl home. As I turned the next corner, lo and behold, there he was at the end of the street. He took off again when he saw me stop and stand there looking at him. But the whole way back home, I would either see him or hear his muffler. I still hadn't put my knife away, because I knew if he actually got a hold on me, I was in no condition to be able to get him off of me without a lucky stab. He actually drove by me as I was fighting to open the door to my crappy little duplex. My roommate and I lived on the bottom floor. Once I got in, I felt pretty safe. Enough to crawl to the couch and pass out because my roommate's big-ass skinhead boyfriend was there with her. And his pit something mix, who was a love bug, was smart enough to know when not to be. When I finally woke up the following evening, those things hit me really hard. My roommate told me she couldn't believe I had slept with all the ruckus. Apparently the dog had started barking around 4:30 a.m. and wouldn't stop. So they let him out of the room and tried to go back to sleep. But Rudy wasn't having that. They came back out to tell him to shut up, and he was running back and forth between the back corner window and the window behind the couch I was passed out on, which was the actual back side. Finally, standing on the couch over me and going batshit crazy acting like he was trying to bite through the friggin' glass. Without me waking up. My roommate later told me she had checked to make sure I hadn't OD'd and died. This was the point where my roomie's boyfriend decided to go out and check what the heck his dog was trying to kill. He grabbed the bat we kept by the door and made his way to the back where the window to the couch was. He heard a lot of noise going around the other side. Living in a crappy part of the city, there was a lot of crap around the building. And then a car starting up. A loud car. By the time he ran to the front, the car was halfway down our street. When he made his way back around to check the window Rudy was trying to eat through, there was a bunch of crates moved from under the first window he was barking at, stacked up under the window where the couch was, and the screen had been cut where you put your fingers through to open it. I always read these threads where people say, "I'm getting goosebumps just writing this," and shaking my head, thinking they're so overdramatic. And now I feel like an a-hole because there really is no way to describe how you feel reliving this. Over the next few weeks, the boyfriend and Superman stayed at our place because we kept hearing noises, and imagined or not, it scared the hell out of us. Quite a few times the boyfriend would run out when we would hear something, and would sometimes even catch a glimpse of the guy as he went around a corner. But he was never fast enough. Boyfriend would blame it on the guy being ninja fast, but we knew he was just too slow. Some may ask why we didn't just let Rudy out. This was a point in time in my state where they were thinking of outlawing pit bulls. They had a really bad rap. If we had let him out, Rudy would have caught him. And that would just end bad on a lot of levels. But seriously, what kind of person still tries to get into a house with a psycho pit bull and a 6'2" skinhead trying to kill you with a baseball bat? Now you might ask why we didn't call the cops. Well, like I said, I was into some bad stuff, and as a rule, punks don't like cops. However, the neighborhood I lived in, we all talked to each other. And some of them were cop callers. My next door neighbor knew what was going on and called the cops one night when she heard someone in her kitchen. She lived alone. She locked herself in her bathroom and started yelling that the cops were on their way. This guy was persistent and was trying to pop the lock from the outside until he actually heard sirens and booked it. The lady said she heard a loud car start and looked out the bathroom window that faced the street to see, you guessed it, a crappy old green car drive away. When I heard about this, I felt really bad. I mean, this lady is like 87 or so and lives alone. What would have happened if dude got in? Why, oh why didn't we let Rudy eat him? When the cops finally got there, the three of us were outside, so they started asking us if we had heard or seen anything. So we told them what had been going on, and I gave a description of who I thought was doing it, but also said I wasn't sure of the details because I hadn't been feeling well at the time. The cop that was writing it down almost threw his pad and pen down, saying that if people like us, punk rock, smartened up and called the police, then they could have caught this guy. Apparently Mr. Get In Now fit the same description as a guy that they were looking for that was wanted for quite a few sexual assaults around the train station. Now I felt really bad, but still had to give the cop lip over the people like us statement. But that's not the point. I've been clean over 15 years and don't live near town anymore. So I'm pretty sure I would handle things different now. And I know if I hadn't been messed up then, I would have. As far as I know, they never caught that guy. So, Mr. Get In Now, let's not meet. 'Cause now, I will let my dog chew your ass. I am the closing manager for a major movie theater chain. My location is in a semi-major city in the southwest region of the United States. I am a female college student and a night owl, so I always get assigned these late shifts. The part of town that my location is in isn't regarded as a very safe part of town for many reasons. It was a slow Wednesday night, and I was already well ahead of schedule with my duties for the night, and was helping my employees stock in the concession area. I had already locked the front doors. The usher was almost done with his work for the night. The box office attendant had 1 more hour, and the concession attendant was scheduled to get out with me and the other manager in about 2 hours. There are 3 levels of access in my theater. There's customer access, that consists of locations that are accessible to customers and essentially everyone. There's employee access, which is protected by a key padlock. Then there's manager's access, which requires a key to access. I was going into an employee access area where all the paper products were stored. I was intending on bringing a box of napkins to stock the concession area with. So the concession area is connected to the entrance lobby area of the building. Theaters 1 to 8 are in order down an open hallway, immediately to the right of the concession area, after the ticket taker's podium. Theaters 9 to 14 are in a hallway that is perpendicular to the main hallway. It forks off just in front of the men's room in Theater 4. The employee access closet I was getting into was directly in front of Theater 9 and to the right of Theater 14. There is a bench right at this area where a customer was sitting. He seemed to be minding his own business as I arrived to the closet. The box office attendant for the night had concerns about this man because he appeared to be drunk at her counter. But while I was taking my break, the other manager on that night approved the transaction. He was supposed to be there with another friend. I don't think much about this at first because, while he seemed to be looking at me, I just figured he was bored and waiting for someone. I proceed to key in the code for the closet and enter. I noticed rather quickly that he tried to shoot the gap as the door closed. I decided to try shutting the door as hard as I could. I was uncertain that it would get to him in time, but I figured I could at least catch his fingers with the door and buy myself enough time to draw the box cutter I had on my person. Thankfully for me, the door closed in time. He pounded on the door and was shouting, "Let me in," at the top of his lungs. He also tried guessing the keypad code and keying in. All of my scheduled closing employees and the other manager were still in various areas of the building at this point. We communicate using headsets and radios. I called for 2 people to meet me at the floor closet. I was calm and collected, but pressed that it was an urgent matter. The other manager and the usher came to meet me within a minute of my call. The usher helped the man outside, and the other manager came to walk me out. The guy was refusing to leave, claiming that he had items in his theater still. As the usher tells it, there were minibar bottles of liquor everywhere around his seat. The friend he was allegedly meeting that night was also nowhere to be found. This guy should have been in Theater 9, in front of the closet I was getting into. I gathered the boxes I was supposed to bring outside from this trip and bring them to the concession area. We have large windows and glass doors throughout the lobby. I could see him outside, staring through the doors at me for several minutes. I decide to call the police. He is arrested after not leaving the spot. They charged him with public intoxication for the large amounts of alcohol he consumed at his theater. But he wasn't charged with the closet incident because we couldn't prove his intentions. We looked up his name after we had him formally banned from the premises upon his arrest. These sorts of records are all public in my state, so we could see everything he had been charged with. The results were chilling. He had been arrested for voyeurism with a victim under 18 and attempted rape about 10 years ago, and had only been out of prison for about a year, as well as a laundry list of other related crimes before that. We haven't seen him around since, thankfully.